Hi, everyone. My name is Shelly, and I'm with Bee City, Canada. So today, let's learn the buzz about pollinators. So Bee City, Canada is all about protecting pollinators. So let's begin. But we first have to start with a bee joke. I hope you're okay with that. So what do bees chew? Any ideas? How about bumble gum? Pretty bad, eh? Okay, so today we're going to learn a few things. Who are the pollinators? What is pollination? Perhaps a word you've heard many times, but wasn't quite sure exactly what that meant. Why are pollinators and pollination so important? We're hearing about it all the time. And why you want to be crazy interested in bees. So that's what we're going to try and approach today. So let's start with the pollinators. If you look at the top left, you'll see the hummingbird, that's a pollinator. And beside that, to the right, you'll see beetles. Beetles are pollinators. And then up above to the far right, that's a moth, huge moth, pollinator. Below that, a butterfly, also a pollinator. And if you scoot over to the other side, now that may look like a bee to some of you, but that's a wasp. And right below, you'd say, is that a bee? Well, that happens to be a fly. So who are we missing in this group? Well, of course, my favorite, the bees. There's over 20,000 bees around the world. And in Canada, close to 1,000 different kinds of bees. If you look at this photo, you'll see, oh my goodness, look at the color. There's a honeybee here. There's a mining bee. There's a bumblebee. There's a little sweat bee. That's the metallic bee on the far left in the middle. Okay, so we know who the pollinators are. Many thousands of different species, not just a honeybee. So why did pollinators go to flowers, right? There's something about a flower and a bee. Okay, well, bees like us, they need to eat every day. So they're looking for flowers because in the flowers, they're offered two very important things. One is pollen. That's where they get the protein from. And if you look on the far left, you'll see all the little fuzzy little things around the bee. That's pollen from the flower. And then also nectar, which is their energy, their carbohydrate. So let's take a look here.
Yesterday, I found this cute little bumblebee in my flowers, just slurping nectar, as you can see. And well, I decided to greet this little ambassador of spring by taking some nice macro shots. Well, she was moving quite fast, as you can see. But then I found that this morning, she's still there. Quite cold, and it was just about 3 degrees Celsius, which is very close to freezing point. And she was hardly moving, which was perfect for macros. You can find these photos on my Flickr. The link is in the video description again. And here I'm putting the bee bag on the flowers. I just found it on the underside of a flower, stiff, this morning. And yeah, I just also put some honey on that stick. I was actually trying to put the honey onto the flower, but the bee just got stuck to it. So I'm trying another stick. You can see the bee seems quite hungry. And she's slurping from the stick already. But that means I'm losing focus due to too much movement. So I'm trying my best to feed that little bee. You can see her tongue is still out there, trying to lick some of the remains that might be on the flower. But, well, I should be a little less greedy and put a bigger drop for her on the flower somehow. Now you can see her little tongue coming out to slurp up the honey that I put there for her, which is quite nice, I think. Because despite some wind, you can still see the details quite nicely on this macro HD video. By the way, bees have a total of 5 eyes, I have these two large compound eyes that are made up of hundreds of individual eye units, but also 3 more eyes just for detecting light intensity, which are just right on her forehead. You can actually see that in my macro photos. So, despite this being a little bit of an unusual video, I still hope you enjoy this look at the little ambassador of spring.
Okay, so if you notice, the tongue is actually called a proboscis. Why do flowers offer food to the pollinators? Okay, so the pollinators are getting food from the flowers, but what does the flowers get in return? So on the far left, you'll see a diagram of a flower. You'll see something labeled the stigma. Well, that's the female part of the flower. The pollen on the stamen is the male part of the flower. You getting the picture? And there's the ovule, which is where the seed gets produced. All right, so let's figure out what's happening. The best way I can describe it to you is with a video that I'm about to show you. And it's all about the bumblebee, because the bumblebee does a special kind of pollination called buzz pollination. And you'll soon learn about that.
This buzzing is a secret password, the key to a lock. What this bumblebee is after is pollen. Bumblebees eat pollen. It's high in protein. But the flower doesn't want to give it to just anyone, so it hides it away in those bright yellow anthers. For a flower, that's unusual. Most flowers keep their pollen on the outside of the anther, which is the male part of the flower. Pollen is basically sperm for plants. Most flowers make sugary nectar too. They use it as bait to attract bees and other pollinators, which get coated in pollen along the way. And since bees are messy, they inadvertently scatter some of that pollen onto the female part of the next flower they visit. That's how most flowers have sex. But this type of flower doesn't offer nectar. The only way to get to its pollen is through those tiny pores at the ends. But the bumblebee knows just what to do. It wraps its legs around the flower and bites down on the anthers, that male part of the flower. See those wings shaking? Normally, the bumblebee uses those powerful muscles to flap its wings. That's what makes the buzzing sound when they fly. But here, those muscles vibrate its whole body, so hard and fast that it makes a louder, higher-pitched buzz. This vibration shakes up the pollen trapped inside the anthers until it spews out all over the bumblebee. It's called buzz pollination, and you don't need a bumblebee to do it. A tuning fork will do. The bumblebee grooms the pollen down into sticky sacs on its legs, carries it back to the hive. Only a few types of pollinators, like bumblebees, are capable of buzz pollination. Honeybees can't do it. This field is kind of a free-for-all. Think Las Vegas buffet. Tons of food, but long lines. Lots of competition. Buzz pollination is more like a private club. By only permitting pollinators that know the secret knock, the flower ups the chances that its pollen will end up on flowers from the same club, the same species. The bumblebee? Well, sure, it has to work a little harder, and there's no sweet nectar. But it's a reliable pollen stash that almost no one else has access to. Tomatoes, potatoes, blueberries. All of these need buzz pollination to reproduce. Much of the food we eat owes its existence to that buzz.
Okay, so I'm going to stop right here and let's just think about this for a second. So we have pollination, we have the movement of the pollen to the stigma, going down the ovule, creating a seed. It's fertilization. It's creating a seed. So what does that actually mean? Well, what do we get from seeds? If you see here, I have my basket here. Well, apples, and remember buzz pollination, tomatoes, and blueberries. And what about potatoes, like French fries? And what else do we have? Of course, lemons and squash and oranges and avocados and chocolate. Need a pollinator, not a bee, but a fly. Coffee, no coffee. Sorry, Mom and Dad, no coffee without pollinators. Peanuts, you bet, has a flower. Pollinators, oils, almonds, even our medicine. Most of those come from plants. And in order to have more plants, need to have seeds, need to have the pollinators. Getting the idea? But we're not the only ones here on the planet. What about the giraffes in other countries? Of course, not here in North America. They rely on plants too. Of course, they need seeds to produce more plants. And what about our bears? Don't they rely on plants too? Don't they live on this planet? And what about the birds? The squirrels? The moose? The donkeys? And all the other little creatures too. We all depend on that. And don't forget, you like to wear clothes, cotton? Well, need to have the pollinators to produce cotton. So you can see why pollination is so darn important. Okay, let's get back to the presentation. So if you look behind me, you'll see this poster, Backyard Bees in North America. We give that to every bee school. I'll tell you more about that later. Okay, so like I said, my favorite pollinator are the bees. But let's see, people get confused. We don't even know what a bee is anymore. Like if you look at the far left, that's a hornet, not a bee. And then there's the European hornet and yellow jackets and paper wasps. And everybody's saying, oh, it's a bee, it's a bee. The bees don't come to our picnic. Those are the wasps and the hornets. The bees are really only interested in flowers. So the bottom two, you can see it's a honeybee on the left and a bumblebee on the right. So let's learn a little bit about bees. Do bees sleep? You bet they sleep. Sometimes you find them in flowers if you look closely. So their antennas flat back. Sometimes they dream and they twitch. They're awfully cute. And bees are so cool and so smart. This video that I'm about to show you was done by researchers. They wanted to see if bees are smart. They wanted to check their cognition to see if they could figure something out. So they wondered if they could get a bee, if they rolled the ball into the middle of something, and then get a treat, if they could teach the bees to roll a ball. And then they thought, okay, we're using yellow balls, but let's see if we tried a different color. Let's see what would happen. Let's see what the bees could do. Let's find out.
The humble bumblebee has a surprisingly flexible brain. They can come up with the most efficient solution to receive a reward rather than simply mimicking what they see others do. Bees were taught to move a ball to the center of a platform. If successful, they got a sugary treat. They were taught by other bees, by fake bees held by scientists, or by invisible ghost bees, actually a magnet.
didn't learn so well from the ghost bees. Real bees were better teachers. Rather than mimicking the conditions they were shown, bees went off script to solve problems. The demonstrations they learned from all involved yellow balls. This ball is black, not yellow, but the bee still chooses it as the closest ball to the center. She knows she doesn't need a yellow ball specifically. Any ball will do to solve the problem. This kind of cognitive flexibility is previously unknown in insects. Clever girls.
Pretty smart, don't you think? So, not only could they figure this out with a black ball or a yellow ball, but they also learned best from other bees. Okay, let's talk about the next video that's coming up. Do bees blow their nose? All right, I guess bees, maybe they have a nose. Let's find out. So Professor Joseph Wilson, he's a biologist prof in Utah, and when he was 2 years old, he told his parents that he wanted to grow up and be a lion. Well, obviously that wasn't going to happen, so he thought a biologist was the closest thing he could get to being a lion. So the poster you see behind me was courtesy of Professor Joseph Wilson and his wife, who's also a prof as well. They're both experts in bees and spend a lot of time outdoors. And so he's also created a book called Bees in the Backyard. Let's find out.
Hey guys, how's it going? Oh, hold on a second. Sorry. Does your nose ever get so plugged up that you can't smell anything? It kind of even stops you from tasting stuff. Have you ever wondered about that with bees? Can bees' noses get clogged? Can they blow their noses? Do bees even have noses? Well, the simple answer is no, bees don't have noses. But they do have some really cool sensory cells to help them interact with the world. That's what we want to talk about today. So bees' sensory cells are kind of concentrated in their antennae. They have lots of different kind of cells on these antennae. If you were able to look really close, you'd see the antennae are covered with hairs and little pits. And these hairs and little pits are connected with sensory organs. They have chemosensory organs on their antennas. Chemosensory meaning chemical sensing. They can sense the chemicals in the air and on the flowers around them. So we have chemosensory cells too. These are our taste buds and in our nose. So this is how we smell and taste the world. So a bee smells and tastes the world with its antennas. Some studies show that bees can smell a flower from over a kilometer away through the air. Also, because their antennas are sticking out the sides of their head, they can smell in binocular smell-o-vision, or whatever you want to call it. They can smell the direction that things are coming in. That's pretty cool. Also, bees have mechanoreceptors on their antenna. We have mechanoreceptors. These are our touch sensors. Also, this is how we hear with mechanoreceptors. So bees actually can feel the world with their antennae, and some studies show they can actually hear the world with their antennae. Bees' antennae are really cool, covered with sensory cells. But the bees' antennas are getting into the flowers, and they're digging in the dirt, and they're getting covered with gunk. And that stops them from being able to interact with the world in the same way. It kind of plugs up their noses. So how does a bee blow its nose? Well, I've spent a lot of time looking really closely at bees under microscopes, and I've noticed on all bees on their front leg, kind of in their elbow area, there's this kind of interesting notch with a little comb in it. This is actually a built-in antenna cleaner. So if you look closely at the front leg, you see there's a little groove in there. That groove fits the antenna just perfectly, and it has a little comb on it. On the other side, it has kind of this little flap that kind of locks the antenna in there. The bee will lock its leg around its antenna and pull the antenna through there, and as it pulls the antenna through, it cleans off all that dirt and pollen and any gunk that's kind of collected on the antenna. So it's kind of like it's blowing its nose. It's cleaning off those sensory cells so it can smell the world and taste the world and even hear the world. Isn't that cool? So I've watched a lot of bees, and as I've videoed bees, you can see a lot of times before they take off or as they're cleaning their bodies off, they spend some time to clean off their antennae, especially after they're foraging in flowers. They take a break, clean off their antennae, and then keep foraging. It's pretty cool. So anyway, I just wanted to show you that. Bees kind of do blow their nose, in a way. Well, they clean their antennae off anyway. So subscribe to our channel and follow us on social media if you want to learn more about bees. Thanks for watching.
Okay, I have another video to show you if you don't think bees are cool already. So, in case you've ever wondered how to train a bumblebee to pull a string to get food, I'm going to show you how to do that. And if the bee can't figure it out, be sure that they get a friend to help. How to train a bumblebee. Yes, it's possible. Research in the UK have trained bees to pull a string to get food. String pulling is common in studies of animal intelligence. Scientists use string tests with over 160 species of mammals and birds, and now one kind of insect. Okay, so the truth is that bees are in decline all over the world, and especially bumblebees. So what can you do? Well, I ask myself the same question. What can I do? So I have a garden with a sign on it that's bee friendly. So of course I have lots of flowers, lots of different species, lots of biodiversity. And then what you can do is you can become a bee school. So check out bcitycanada.org and plant a food or pollinator garden and share pollinator facts with your family and friends and celebrate National Pollinator Week. So check us out on bcitycanada.org. So what I also did is I started Bee City Canada. That was almost 5 years ago. Now we're coast to coast. There's 42 bee cities, 2 First Nation bee cities, 41 bee schools, 12 bee campuses, and lots of business partners, including a zoo and a church and a golf course. They all want to protect pollinators. So if you're living in a city that's not a bee city or a little town, check out our website and maybe you can go to city council and get that to happen. I'm really proud of this. This is what Guelph did to celebrate that they became a bee city, a floral garden with a bee. Or you can educate and inspire others, just like these 2 girls and their friends from our First Nation community.
Hi, I'm Sasha and I'm from Tikit. We are the first Indigenous bee city community in Canada. Hi, I'm Ken. And we're here with Jade Brigman, Brianne Brigman, and Dinah Brigman. This is the board we use when we present Bee City. We also give out pamphlets and starter plants to spread awareness about the pollinators. This is Pollinator Packham. His name in Statlia means to bloom. I originally started with this poster I drew. Each one has a different month message. For example, this one says Pollinator Packham says plant perennials, please. Then it turned it to a stick puppet that we handed out at each of our events. And now we've created this to make Pollinator Packham a little more alive. This is him close up. And this is Nicole. Nicole means butterfly in Statlia. In the future, we would like to see a full life-size mascot of Pollinator Packham. I think it would really help engage the Our dream would be to get our message nationwide. Our message is simple. All we're saying is give bees a chance.
So another little joke. Look, Dad, a bee. Quick, get me a rolled up newspaper. Thanks for all you do for this planet, little bee. So we really do indeed need to thank these bees for what they do for the planet, and us included, that we live on this planet. And remember, in order to protect something, we need to love it. But in order to love it, we need to understand it and know something about it. So I hope in this presentation you've learned a little bit about bees. We're going to do more of these videos so that you can learn more details about all kinds of bees and pollinators and get excited about them. Thank you all so much, and we hope to see you soon. Remember, give bees a chance. Bye.